She brought another man to our anniversary dinner, laughed while everyone stared at me, and called me her pet husband. People thought I'd swallow it like I always did. They were wrong. Before I go on, do me a favor. Hit subscribe, tap like, and leave a comment if you believe silence can be louder than any scream. Trust me, this story earns it. 7 years of marriage had taught me how to sit still, how to smile when something cut deep, how to stay quiet so the room wouldn't explode. That night, I was sitting at a small table under warm lights in a downtown steakhouse, white tablecloth perfectly pressed, silverware aligned like soldiers. The reservation said 7:09 p.m. I arrived early, jacket pressed, hands steady. By 8:30, the ice in the water glass across from me had melted into nothing. Her chair was still empty. The waiter had already asked 3 times if I wanted to order. Each time I said no. The couple beside me kept glancing over, then quickly looking away, that mix of curiosity and pity people try to hide. My phone lay face up near my plate. No messages, no missed calls, nothing. I could have left. Any reasonable man would have, but I stayed, because staying had become my specialty. I told myself there had to be a reason. Traffic. A dead phone. Some harmless excuse that would let me keep believing what I'd been telling myself for years, that we were fine, that silence meant peace, that swallowing disrespect was the same thing as being strong. At 8:55, the manager hovered nearby, pretending to straighten a menu stand. I nodded at him like everything was under control. My heart didn't race. It didn't ache. It felt flat, like a room after all the furniture's been removed. Then the front door opened. She walked in wearing a black dress I'd never seen before. Hair perfect, heels sharp against the floor, and her arm wasn't empty. A tall guy walked beside her, broad shoulders, confident grin, the kind of presence that fills space without asking permission. His hand rested comfortably at her back, not tentative, familiar. Every head turned. She saw me immediately and smiled, not nervous, not apologetic, calm, certain, like this was exactly how the night was supposed to go. They walked straight toward my table. "I hope you didn't start without me," she said lightly. "This is Ryan. I told you about him." She had mentioned a trainer months earlier, back when she said she wanted to feel alive again. I'd supported that, encouraged it, paid for it. Ryan stuck out his hand like we were meeting at a barbecue, not at my anniversary dinner. Before I could react, she leaned up and kissed him, not quick, not subtle, long enough that a woman nearby gasped, long enough that the room went silent. Then she looked at me and laughed. "Relax," she said, loud enough for others to hear. "My pet husband won't do anything. He's a good boy. He always just sits there." Laughter followed, awkward. Nervous, someone dropped a fork. The waiter froze mid-step. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel shame. I felt clarity. I folded my napkin carefully and set it on the table. Stood up slowly, buttoned my jacket. Ryan looked confused. She looked amused. I shook his hand once, firm, calm. "Congratulations," I said. Then I turned to her, met her eyes one last time, and spoke evenly. "Enjoy your dinner." I walked out without rushing, without looking back. The room stayed silent as I passed through it. Outside, the night air felt cool and clean. For the first time in years, I didn't feel small. I felt finished. I didn't drive fast. That surprised me. No shaking hands on the wheel, no racing thoughts, no urge to scream. The city lights slid past the windshield in neat lines, red and white, orderly, controlled. I stopped at every red light, signaled every turn. Calm has a way of sneaking up on you when something finally snaps into place. The house was dark when I pulled into the driveway. Quiet. Still. Exactly the way it should have been for years. I stood there for a moment after turning off the engine, listening to the ticking sound as the metal cooled. No messages, no calls, not yet. I stepped inside and closed the door behind me without locking it, like it didn't matter anymore. I didn't sit down, didn't pour a drink, didn't stare at photos on the wall pretending to remember when things were good. That kind of behavior belonged to someone waiting to be forgiven. I wasn't waiting. I went straight to the hallway closet and pulled out every black trash bag I could find. One by one, I carried them to the bedroom. Her bedroom. That realization hit me quietly. At some point, without a conversation or a fight, it had stopped being ours. I started with the closet, dresses first, shoes next. I didn't fold anything. I didn't pause to admire labels or price tags. Fabric hit plastic with dull thuds. A red dress I remembered buying for a wedding, a pair of heels she wore once and complained all night, jewelry boxes rattling, zippers screaming. There was no rush, but there was no hesitation either. The bathroom came next, bottles lined up like trophies, creams, sprays, things with promises written on them. I swept the counter clean in one motion, drawers emptied, mirrors stayed untouched. I wasn't erasing her, I was removing her. While my hands worked, my phone did too. I made calls with the same steady voice I used at work. No explanations, no emotion, just instructions. One account, then another. Names removed, access changed. Each confirmation felt less like revenge and more like gravity restoring balance. By midnight, the garage looked like a warehouse, black bags stacked neatly against the wall. 15 of them, maybe more. I dragged them to the curb slowly, one at a time. The neighbors' lights were on, curtains moved, let them watch, let them wonder. I didn't owe anyone a story. Back inside, I locked the door and immediately unlocked it again. Unscrewed the deadbolt, drove to a hardware store that smelled like sawdust and late nights. The kid at the register didn't ask questions, neither did I. New lock, new keys, simple. When I sat down finally, it wasn't to rest. It was to send 3 short messages, clear, final, no drama. Then I blocked a number I'd memorized without realizing it. Another silence settled in, heavier than before, but cleaner. I lay down fully dressed, staring at the ceiling. The house felt bigger, like it had exhaled. My phone buzzed once from an unknown number. I turned it face down and closed my eyes. Outside, the night kept moving. Inside, I was done being still. Morning came without permission. Pale light slipped through the blinds like it had something to prove. I woke up clear-headed, no headache, no weight pressing on my chest. That alone told me I'd crossed a line I wasn't meant to walk back over. By the time the coffee finished brewing, my phone was already vibrating on the counter. Unknown numbers, one after another. I didn't check them. I didn't need to. The silence I'd chosen was doing exactly what it was supposed to do. At 6:00 a.m. on the dot, a pickup truck rolled into the driveway. My brother, Mark, stepped out with a cup of gas station coffee and a look that said he knew better than to ask too many questions. He glanced at the line of black bags along the curb and raised an eyebrow. "All hers?" he asked. "Every bit," I said. That was enough. We loaded them without another word. The truck bed filled fast. By the time he pulled away, the curb was empty, like nothing had ever been there. I made breakfast after that. Real breakfast. Eggs, toast, bacon. Sat at the table and ate slowly, savoring the normalcy of it. That's when the knocking started. Not polite, not patient. The doorbell rang like it was being punished. I didn't move. Her voice cut through the door, sharp and panicked, demanding, accusing. I took another sip of coffee, checked the weather on my phone. Clear skies, mild, a good day to start over. The banging grew louder, then stopped. Keys rattled. Silence followed, the kind that sinks in. Then came shouting. Questions, disbelief, anger. I answered once, calmly, through the door, just enough to make the boundaries real. No arguing, no insults, just facts. I listened as the tone shifted, from rage to confusion, from confusion to fear. I didn't feel triumph, I felt distance. Emotional distance is a strange thing. It doesn't announce itself, it just arrives fully formed. My phone buzzed again. This time with messages from people I trusted, short check-ins, concern without panic. I replied just enough to reassure them, nothing more. Work needed a heads up. I gave it one, professional, clean. When the noise outside finally quieted, I grabbed my gym bag and went out through the garage, started the car. As the door lifted, I saw her standing there, looking smaller. Then I remembered. She said my name like it still had power. It didn't. I drove away at the speed limit. At the office, the world kept spinning. Coffee brewed, emails waited, people nodded hello like it was any other Monday. That normalcy was grounding. My boss asked a few direct questions. I gave direct answers. No embellishment. He nodded and moved on. Respect feels different when it isn't forced. By lunch, word had spread without my help. Not gossip, context, the kind that settles things instead of stirring them. I didn't correct anyone. I didn't need to. That afternoon, my phone buzzed again. A name I recognized this time. I stepped outside to take the call. The conversation was quiet, heavy, honest. When it ended, I stood there for a moment looking at the parking lot, feeling something unfamiliar settle in. Relief. I went back inside, sat at my desk, and finished my work. Whatever was happening beyond those walls no longer required my participation, and that, more than anything else, told me I was exactly where I needed to be. 3 months later, the paperwork was finished. No courtroom drama, no shouting matches, just signatures, stamps, and a quiet finality that felt almost surgical. People expect explosions at the end of a marriage. What they don't tell you is that sometimes it ends with a pen scratching across paper and two people realizing they no longer share the same reality. My life didn't transform overnight. It simplified. Mornings became predictable in the best way. I woke up when my alarm rang, not to tension, not to criticism disguised as concern. I started taking better care of myself, not out of spite, not to prove anything, but because there was finally room to breathe. The house felt different, lighter, like it had been waiting for permission to relax. On a Friday night, Mark and my friend Jason talked me into dinner downtown. Nothing fancy. Good food, cold beer, familiar voices. Halfway through the evening, Jason leaned back and studied me for a second. "You're different," he said. "Not happier exactly. Just steadier." I knew what he meant. Peace doesn't always announce itself with fireworks. Sometimes it just shows up and stays. When we walked out of the restaurant, the air was cool and quiet. That's when I saw her across the street, standing alone at a bus stop. Different clothes, cheaper, hair shorter. She looked tired in a way sleep doesn't fix. Our eyes met for a brief moment. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel satisfaction. I felt nothing at all, and that was the most honest reaction I could have had. Jason noticed. "You okay?" he asked. I nodded. "Yeah, perfect." I drove home to my house, locked the door, grabbed a beer, sat on the couch I chose, watching a movie I wanted, at a volume no one complained about. My phone buzzed once, unknown number. I flipped it face down without checking. Halfway through the movie, I caught myself smiling, not because of what was on the screen, but because I wasn't bracing for the next comment, the next test, the next moment of quiet disrespect. I finally understood something I wish I'd learned years earlier. Staying silent to keep the peace only works when both people respect the silence. She'd called me a good boy, thought obedience was weakness, thought control was power. What she never understood was that patience has limits, and tolerance has an expiration date. I didn't leave in anger. I left in clarity. And that made all the difference. Walking away from toxicity isn't dramatic. It's deliberate. It's locking a door and not reopening it just because someone knocks louder. It's choosing self-respect over familiarity. It's understanding that sometimes the strongest move you can make is to stop playing altogether. If this story resonated with you, hit subscribe, tap like, and leave a comment. Tell me, what would you have done in my place? Your support helps more than you know. I'll see you in the next story.